And welcome back to the next edition of What Cosell is Watching. And this time, this one hits close to home, being a lifelong Laker fan who's now a Laker fan in recess till a certain guy out of Akron, Ohio is no longer part of my favorite basketball team, the Los Angeles Lakers. And this is something that was on Hulu, produced in 2022, called The Legacy, the true story of the LA Lakers, directed by Antoine Fuqua and executive produced by Jeannie Buss. Now, the reason why this thing kind of evokes a lot of emotions is the current state of the franchise. They've kind of let one player run it. I don't think there's a lot of leadership. And the story begins in the 1979-80 season. Even though the Lakers go all the way back to Minneapolis with George Mikan, where they're the first NBA dynasty, and obviously through the days when they moved to the West Coast with the great Jerry West and Elgin Baylor while they played at the LA Sports Arena, but to a child of the 80s, where the Laker franchise really began, was the day that Dr. Jerry Buss owned the team, and he bought it from the mercurial Jack Kent Cooke, and with that, the number one pick, some guy out of Michigan State, Magic Johnson. And from that point on, I have to tell you, as a kid growing up in the 80s in the Southern California area, when the Laker games were on KHJ, later KCAL Channel 9, and then eventually as cable TV started to sprout, you got on-TV games and then prime ticket. I can honestly say that I probably watched, out of 82 regular season games, I probably watched about 77 to 78. It was rare when I missed the games. And then all the playoff games, and you live and die. And I still remember the summer of 1984 when the Lakers blew that series in 7 games to Boston. It ruined my summer. I'm not going to lie to you. It haunted me. And it haunted everybody because at that point, our beloved Lakers were 0-8. It's the first Celtics series that I ever went through because I wasn't born at a time when Jerry West was getting his heart broken every year by Bill Russell. But the Lakers have been the most dominant franchise historically in LA, with all due respect to other franchises like the LA Dodgers. Nobody has won as many world championships, and nobody has unified our city like that. And that's the thing, though. But I really think that Jerry Buss is missed. I know that it's a family business, and the Lakers are not a corporate structure. The Buss family basically owns the Lakers, and that's it. And the things that he did, he was an absolute pioneer. And I did not know this. He was very close to actually being in the running to buy the Dallas Cowboys before Jerry Jones. I wonder how that would have changed the history. But now, look, I don't think this was as good as The Last Dance, which is based on the 1998 season, the final one for Michael Jordan as the Chicago Bull. But I really enjoyed some of the archival footage. They had a lot of interviews with all the players that were involved, but they had a lot of news footage, a lot of broadcast footage, some of which I remember from that era growing up. And it's just so many great memories. And speaking of 84, so the 85 season is, to me, the most important in Laker history because we rematched the Celtics. They blow out the Lakers in game 1, 148-114, and it was, to me, the most devastating blowout loss I had seen the Lakers ever take. And now you're thinking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is old, Robert Parrish just beat him up and down the floor, and there was a phobia. We really believed that the Celtics had our number. We were never going to beat them. But when they finally did, out of all the championships that I've won as a fan, okay, and there's not that many, but as a Laker fan, you've had your share of success. I'm a Miami Hurricane fan, so I know what it's like to experience championships. I'd have to say the 85 one, based on the summer before, the historical nature of it, and how much we love the Lakers. It really shows you how important that was. They finally got the monkey off our back. And some of my best childhood memories are of the 87 and 88 back-to-back championships, something that had not been done for about 2 decades. And there's so many great stories. And another man that cannot be overlooked in terms of his legacy, and I think he's actually underrated despite being the logo, Jerry West. Not only is Jerry West one of the great 2 guards of all time, but the job he did in running that franchise was incredible. In my view, when you look at the Mount Rushmore of all-time general managers, not only in basketball, but for all sports. I think he makes a clear case. And the one thing that I love that they talked about, summer of '86, the Lakers losing 5 games to an upstart Rocket team led by the Twin Towers. Jerry Buss nearly trades James Worthy for a package that would have included Mark Aguirre and Roy Tarpley. Jerry West couldn't believe it, and he told Buss, he says, "Jerry, I know you own the team, but I just want you to know, you make this trade, I'm going to resign." By the way, it's the best move he ever made because Roy Tarpley could not stay off the nose candy. His career was never the same. So they have a lot of stories like this, and it brings back so many memories of me watching the games. And as they show some of these highlights, I can actually recall where I was watching it, and it brought back the same feeling. And it's a really well done documentary. I don't think any documentary is perfect. They all have their agendas, but this one was really good. All right, so as I wrap it up here, here's my Mount Rushmore of the 80s Lakers, what they called Showtime. This is their Mount Rushmore. So all due respect to Elgin Baylor, Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, George Mikan, Gail Goodrich, you're just not eligible. So obviously, number 1 and 2, they're interchangeable. Magic Johnson, I still believe, might be the greatest Laker ever. I know there's a lot of support from Kobe, from a lot of kids or young people that are of a certain generation. Well, for my generation, it's this guy who is the all-time greatest Laker. And number 2, the Cap, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who for a very long time was the all-time leading scorer. And look, this is a great stat. Magic Johnson won 5 NBA titles. All of them had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on them, and the Laker franchise and Magic never won it again until 2000 after his departure. To this day, I still think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's greatness is underrated. Number 3, big game James Worthy. His game 7 in '88, his only triple-double against that unbelievably deep, talented roster and defensive stoppers of the Detroit Pistons. And that's where Chick Hearn coined the phrase big game. Definitely one of the most underrated players ever. If he was a number 1 option in the prime of his career, he could have been a 30-point scorer. He did a lot of great things out there. James Worthy certainly deserves his place. Now, the 4th one is where it gets a little bit dicey, and it's hard to leave AC Green, Byron Scott, Norm Nixon, very underrated, made all-star games, Silk, Jamal Wilkes, and also Bob McAdoo played an important role. All great players, all did some extraordinary things. And of course, Byron Scott, who for a couple years I thought could have made the All-Star game, but it was a loaded backcourt in the Western Conference. But my 4th member of the Showtime Lakers Mount Rushmore is a guy that I thought was one of the greatest role players, one of the best defenders ever, who evolved his game. He went from being a high-flying dunk artist with the Koopa Loop, as I give it away, to being a 3-point sniper. And speaking of defense, I believe he made the all-defensive teams 7 or 8 times and was the 1987 Defensive Player of the Year. And Larry Bird called him the toughest guy he had to deal with on that side of the floor, Michael Cooper. Yes, you look at some of the greatest big shots in Laker history. I still remember a playoff game, Game 5 against the Jazz in 1988 at the Forum. Lakers down by 1, and he hit almost like this late shot with about 6-7 seconds to go. If he doesn't hit that shot, there is no back-to-back. So Michael Cooper, one of my personal favorites, and he wore his socks high. How can you leave a guy that wore socks up that high off? So the Lakers, 1980 Showtime Mount Rushmore, Magic, Kareem, Big Game, and Coop. That's it for this edition of What Cosell is Watching.
If you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss a moment of Fearless.